It's so Cape Coddy out, isn't it? It's quite astonishing, and I know that this, it shows your passion and your joy that you're in here on a beautiful day learning to write or learning to be in a community of other writers. So I'm really honored to be invited to see you here today. And so much fun to see so many friends, Mike Cooper and the Byers, Rick and Marilyn, and Arlene is here, and Michelle. And thank you so much for being part of this community. I want to start by telling you a true story that'll show you that, well, you know what, let me do this first. First, we need the class photo, right? We need the class photo. Class video first. Okay, everybody wave. Okay, this is great, perfect, got you. Okay, now the class photo. Because if it doesn't happen on video or on pictures, it didn't really happen, right? So this side say trust me on this side of the room. Okay. Perfect. Now I'll put this on Facebook and we can all tag each other. Okay, find me on Facebook. Okay. So I want to start by telling you a true story. I was on an airplane a while ago, and it was one of those days where I was really under the gun for getting my revisions done, and I knew I should be working, and I knew I had to work, but I thought, I'm on this airplane, I have so much work to do, but I'm just going to take a tiny bit of time to just regenerate and get my brain working and relax, and and I'm allowed to relax, and it's all good, and I'm just going to do this. I'm going to put in my headphones and listen to the airplane radio and just have an hour of relaxation. So I turn on the radio, I select a channel at random, and what comes on but Natasha Bedingfeld's Unwritten. And I'm like, I know my book is not written, but I'm just going to rest for a little while, and I'll write it when I get there. So I switch the channel away from Unwritten, and what is the next song? Maroon 5, Misery. So I'm thinking, is the universe speaking to me here, or what? So I'm thinking, no, I'm going to rest. So I turn the channel again, and it was the Bee Gees, Stayin' Alive. So I thought, okay, this is it. And that is what I want to speak to you a little bit about today, staying alive in this crazy swirl of publishing and writing and working and revising and disappointments and happiness. And how do we all do this? How do we get through this? And I want to, first I was going to say close your eyes and imagine, but I'm worried about this time of day saying close your eyes and imagine. So just open your eyes and imagine. You're writers, you can do this. And imagine yourself in a bookstore. I write mystery, thriller, suspense, so let's just head to the mystery, thriller, suspense in your brain. And choose a book. We'll choose a book, and we'll choose a big bestseller. You're picking this in your brain. Turn the book over and look at the author photograph, okay? You're picturing this. And chances are that author photo looks all smiley and happy and really self-confident, right? Like, I got this, I'm a bestseller. But I am here to tell you that those big bestsellers don't always feel that way. Maybe you picked the latest by Charlaine Harris, the fabulous Charlaine Harris who wrote True Blood, and she's a multi-skillionaire, and it's all worked out very nicely for Charlaine. Charlaine once told me, and this is a quote from her, "Every time I send the book in to my editor, I believe it is the worst book I've ever written." Charlaine Harris. Maybe you picked the new book by the much-lauded Tess Gerritsen. You know Tess Gerritsen from New England. She wrote Rizzoli and Isles and a whole bunch of standalones, and she's a big, big deal. Famous and very successful. She told me, "With every new project, I wonder if I've lost the touch or whether this next book will disappoint readers and everyone will finally realize I'm a talentless know-nothing." Tess Gerritsen feels that way. Stephen King, he didn't tell me this, but I read somewhere that he threw away the manuscript of Carrie. Isn't that right? He threw away the manuscript of Carrie because he didn't think it was good enough, and his wife retrieved it from the trash. Carrie. And there you are in the bookstore, this best-selling book in your hand, and those authors were wrong. Tess was wrong, Charlaine was wrong, Stephen King was wrong. They all had good novels. So how do we as writers avoid the self-doubt? How do we avoid the panicked re-editing? How do we avoid that fear that seems to course through our veins every minute of every day? Here's how they do it. They don't. They don't. They don't. But the ones who know what's coming, the ones who remember the always comforting reality that they are not alone, they are the ones who are most likely to make it past the depressing obstacles and make it into the fun part. And trust me, the fun part is great. I was such a newbie when I started. Even 30 years as a reporter, as the on-the-air reporter, did not prepare me for the craziness in publishing world. Now, they tell you that you can only learn from experience. But what they don't tell you is that it doesn't have to be your own experience. It can be my experience. So I'm going to tell you today, I think it's 14 quick things that I wish someone had told me. Because as I said, it will help you get to the fun part, and the fun part can be amazing. So number one, most books start out as lousy first drafts. They are going to be terrible. Not most all books start out as lousy first drafts. Every book starts out as a lousy first draft. So just power your way through that crazy first try. Just tell the story. Revising is when you're going to make that story good. You can tweak and polish, of course, along the way, but go on, go on, go on. Advance the story. Always forward progress. The ball game is revision. Revising, editing, that's where you're going to make the book be the way it's going to be. But just get through the first story. And here's the thing. You're not, think of it this way. You're not writing a book. That's incredibly intimidating to think, I'm going to write a whole book. I have 400 pages to go. How am I going to do that? I'm never going to be able to do that. I'll just do something else instead. Just think about writing one page. Do you know this? You can write 250 words. Go to your computer and say, I'm not writing a book. I'm going to write my page for today. Sit down, write 250 words. Promise yourself that you're going to get up afterwards. Set a goal that you can reach. And every day then, you'll be successful. Instead of failing every day by not writing your book, you'll succeed every day by writing your page. And next year, when you come back to this conference, you'll be done. 365 days later, right? You'll have the book that you always wanted to write. And along the way, you'll have good days and you'll have bad days. So does everyone. So does everyone. An author pal of mine, Dana Cameron, says, whose book was just made into a TV movie, okay, so she knows what she's talking about, says she always had worries when she had a bad writing day. But when she persevered, and when she went on, and then when she went back later and looked at what she had written in her manuscript on the bad writing days versus what she had written on the good writing days, she realized that she could not tell the difference. Right? So it wasn't that she was a bad writer. It was just that she was having a bad day. She was worrying about the laundry, or she had a tummy ache, or she was too sleepy, or whatever it was. She was just feeling cranky. She was having a bad day, but she was still a good writer. So just go on. If you're having a bad day, great. All writers have a bad day. Elizabeth Hardwick was interviewed in the Paris Review interviews, and she's fascinating about how this writing thing works. Listen to this. She says, I'm not sure I understand the process of writing. There is, I'm sure, something strange about imaginative concentration. The brain slowly begins to function in a different way to make mysterious connections. She says, say it's Monday, you write a very bad draft. And on Friday, if you keep trying, words and phrases appear almost unexpectedly. She says, I don't know why you can't do it on Monday, or why I can't, right? She says, I'm the same person, no matter what day it is, with nothing more at hand. And she finishes by saying, it's something writing students don't understand. They write the first draft and are quite disappointed, and often should be disappointed. But they don't understand that they have barely begun, and they may even be barely beginning on the third draft. The key is, do it, do it, do it. Just do it. Don't leave your manuscript and regret later that you gave up. How silly would that be to give up? I'm the poster child for following your dreams in midlife. I didn't start writing till I was 55. I'm 68. It's never too late to do that. I want you to know that You can do this. When I got the idea for my first novel, I said to my husband, sweetheart, I'm going to write a mystery. I've got a great idea for a mystery novel. And he says, sweetheart, do you know how to write a mystery? And I said, how hard can it be? You know, I've read a million of these. And I soon realized how hard it could be. And that's what I want to tell you about today. Here's number 2, speaking of how hard it can be. Be ready for the 40,000 word slump. Somewhere in the middle, we all lose faith. And we all have the heart-stopping realization that we have 150 pages to go, and we have no idea what's going to be on that 150 pages. But the journey of 150 pages starts with a single keystroke. When I was writing my first book, Primetime, I got to that 40,000 word place, and I realized that I had no idea what I was doing, none whatsoever. And I called my mom, as we all do if we're lucky, and I said, Mom, I love this book, I love Primetime, I think it's hilarious and it's a good story, but I'm not quite sure I can finish it. And there was this sort of mom-like pause, and she says, well, dear, you will if you want to. You will if you want to, right? And I realized at that moment that that's what it was all about. It was all about my passion and my devotion and my obsession and my determination to finish the book, and I did, and it won the Agatha for Best First Novel, and proves that nothing takes the place of persistence. Nothing takes the place of persistence. Do you know the Anne Lamott writing book, Bird by Bird? Do you know that book, Bird? You need to read Bird by Bird. It's fabulous. And the way it got the title Bird by Bird, Anne Lamott, who's so wonderful and so inspirational, tells the story of when her little brother, you know this, when her little brother, well then you could just take a little rest while I'm talking. Her little brother, her brother was 10 and had a science project. And he had to do the birds of North America. So one night at dinner, he says to his father, I have to do the birds of North America for science. And his father says, great. And so her little brother says, and it's due tomorrow. And his father's, and he says, how am I going to do the birds of North America by tomorrow? And the father said, bird by bird, buddy, bird by bird. And that's how we all write, isn't it? It's word by word, one step at a time. Number 3 is everybody has doubts. Everybody has doubts. If you don't have doubts, you are not facing reality. Let me just put it that way. Some days, every single word of your previously beloved manuscript will seem like a derivative raft of cliches, and you'll wonder, why did I ever think I could do this? This stinks. It's terrible. I promise you, this is a Hank promise for you, it is never that bad. It is never that bad, and it might even be good. Before you trash and burn your novel because you decide that you stink, remember Carrie in the wastebasket, and remember that that might be what you have, that you're just having a bad day. Here's a secret. Here's a special secret. When you're having a bad writing day, go back to that moment, and we've all had that moment when we had the idea for the book, right? When you had that good idea, and you thought, oh, what a great idea. This is going to be a New York Times bestseller. This is going to be wonderful. Go back to that day and remember that moment that gave you goosebumps. Remember that moment when you loved that book, when you thought about that book. Go back to that moment and fall in love with your book again. Remind yourself of when you were in love. Because when you're deeply into your manuscript, you're going to forget that passion. You're just going to be going on to the next paragraph and the next chapter and the next whatever. Remember when you loved it and you think, oh yeah, that's my book about redemption. That's my book about my mother. That's my book about that fabulous, cool crime that only I had thought of. Oh yeah, I remember that now. And then go back to your manuscript and be in love again. But remember, number 4 is there is no right way. There is no right way to do your manuscript. Don't spend your time searching for the writing grail. If you want to outline, outline. If you don't, don't. If you want to make big character studies, do. If you don't, don't. If you want to do snowflakes or thought bubbles or postcards or Post-its or index cards or whatever it is, all good, all fine. If it works for you, fine. If it doesn't work for you, super fine. There's always another way. There's always another way of doing it. Try it your way. If it stalls, try it another way. It's okay. Every way is okay. Number 5, you will be alone a lot. Learn to be, isn't that right? I see you all nodding. You will be alone a lot. Learn to embrace that aloneness. It can be a tiny bit toxic, though, just to be by yourself all the time, looking for answers and wondering if you're right and wondering if you've lost your mind and wondering if you're staying up too late or wondering if you should get up earlier or whatever you should do and how do you know. So remember to be in the real world sometimes. Go to the grocery store and watch, which baggers put the eggs on the bottom and why do they do that. Go on the tea and see how a mom offers a cookie to her little boy, see what they say to each other and how they look. Come to conferences like this. Go be in the world of other writers. You're going to a conference like this. Applaud yourself because you're here. Going to a conference like this isn't just to learn how to write. It is to put yourself in the community of other people who are just like you, who have the dreams and the same dreams and the same hopes and the same aspirations, who you can talk to about semicolons and how to kill somebody, and everybody thinks that's just fine, right? So remember, what you have to remember is groups like this, coming to sessions like this, or Mystery Writers of America, or Thriller Fest, or Sisters in Crime, groups like that show you that even though we write alone, even though you write alone, you are not alone. Number 6, don't underestimate how difficult it is to take criticism. Right? You think you're tough and you think you're a grown-up, but when you give your pages or manuscripts to someone and you say, tell me what you think about this, that's not what really you want. You want them to say, oh my golly, this is the best thing I ever read in my entire life. Don't touch a single word of it. It's brilliant. That's not what they're going to say. But you think, you'll do whatever you have to do to get your book published. But when that someone you trust tells you that your main character seems kind of wimpy, or that the middle of the book sags, or when they say, why didn't your main character just call the police? You're going to be like, but she didn't, it's because the book has to go on. She has to solve it herself. I don't know. That's just how it has to work. Don't freak out. Don't freak out. Just listen to what the person has to say. Take it if you love it. Don't take it if you don't love it. One of the most freeing things that I ever learned was that I could be wrong. Imagine that. That someone else might have a good idea. And if the good idea is presented by someone you trust that will help you with your book, why not accept that? It's not criticism. It's not like a test at school when your teacher says, F, that really stinks. How could you have handed this in? It's a growing, brainstorming, writing thing. We're in it together to make it good. You don't have to do what they say. But if it isn't difficult, if you read my book, Trust Me, which comes out August 28th, no pressure, it's just my career, you'll notice that there's a thing in the book that will make you gasp. And I will tell you, I did not think of that. When my editor read the book, she said, why don't you do X, Y, and Z? And I'm like, no, that will never work. Forget it, I can't do it. And as I was saying no, my brain was going, yeah, good idea. Really, good idea. And finally, after about 30 seconds of complaining, I said, yes, indeed, you are brilliant, you are fabulous, I'm going to do that right now. So when you read the book and you get to that part, you email me and you let me know, because I will tell her that, because it was totally her idea. But it's my book, and I made it work, and I'm thrilled about it. So writing is hard work. When you hit the wall, and you will, I promise you will, when you hit the wall, pat yourself on the back, because that proves you are a writer. There's a wonderful quote from Thomas Edison, who said, he said, always remember, when you think you have exhausted all of the possibilities, remember this, you haven't. Is that not so great? So when you have a problem, it doesn't mean that there's no solution to it. It just means that you haven't thought of it yet. So go on, be brave, have fun, but it's not a test. You can erase, you can do it over. Just see what works. No one is going to see it until you show them. So just try it another way. It doesn't disappear. one motto that you can think about is, what would you attempt to do if you knew you could not fail? What if someone said, you are going to be a New York Times bestseller, but it's going to be tough along the way? What would you do? You'd say, fine, I'll do whatever you say. That's all good. So what would you attempt to do if you knew you could not fail? But number 7 is listen to your inner voice. Your brain and your consciousness knows a lot more than you sometimes let out. You've had this happen, right? So relax a little bit, and when your brain is telling you something, when your brain snags on something, listen to that. I once tried to make my main character, Charlotte McNally, in my first series, in primetime, shoot someone. It was all great. She was I had it all set up so perfectly that she was a prodigy with a gun. There was a scene in the end where she had a gun. It all made sense, completely exciting and fabulous, and she was going to shoot the person in the end. And I got to this big scene, and I'm writing as fast as I possibly can, and suddenly I stopped because I couldn't make this scene work. She just wouldn't shoot the person. She's a reporter. And I can see her in my mind's eye as perfectly as anything standing there saying, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to shoot the guy. And I'm like, yes, you are, because that's how this scene has to go. And she says, and I heard her voice so clearly. I mean, I know it's me. I'm not, it's not woo, it's just me, but I know. But I heard her voice so clearly saying, I'm a reporter. I think for a living. I don't shoot people. And I thought, okay, you know better than I do. My brain knew better than I did, and I had to change the scene so she didn't, no spoiler. And the book was so much better because I had listened to my character, which meant I had listened to my inner self. And conversely, there'll be times when you get to a point in your book, and I know that you've had these places where your brain snags on the same place every time. And your response is, oh, that's okay, nobody will notice. Oh, that's okay, I'll just leave it there, right? Nobody will notice that. That is what you need to fix. That is the thing that your brain is just shrieking by telling you this is what you need to fix. So face your problems. If you see that there's a problem and you think this is too hard to fix, I don't know how to do it, that is what you need to face, and when you face it, it will be better. Do not ignore the problem. Fixing them will make it better. Here's a very practical solution for number 8. Keep lists while you're writing. Keep track. Remember, you are making a whole new world with dozens maybe of characters and a whole new setting and a whole new geography and a whole new map and a whole new system. Keep track of that. Keep track. You have people and ages and eye colors and dogs and street names. Birthdays, give them a birthday. I once had my main character be 40 years old for like 2 years until I realized that I hadn't kept track of the time going by. Also, I keep track of what time it is in every scene. So chapter 1, page 1, Monday, 9 a.m. That way you won't wind up with a scene that lasts for 40 hours, or where nobody sleeps, or nobody eats, or nobody goes to the bathroom, or it doesn't get dark. You just keep track of the time. Also, if you know that, then when somebody in the book says, was it only 2 weeks ago that Sally was killed? You're not like, oh, I don't know. and I don't have, right? And I don't have time to go back and look that up. But if you keep a running track of the scene, you'll know where you are. Number 9 is don't rush. Please don't rush. Don't get swept away by your first novel enthusiasm. To make it really good will take much longer than you think it will. Sending your manuscript out too early will make you lose your chance with your dream agent or your dream editor. You get one chance to command someone's attention. If you send it out too early, you will squander that chance. So when in doubt, wait. When in doubt, wait. And if you can't stand it and you want to send it in, call me or email me. My cards are up at the front desk here, and I will tell you to wait. It will never hurt to wait another week and look at it again, and all of your mistakes will run screaming out from you. Rejection is number 10. It isn't always about the book. You're going to get rejected. When you get rejected, that's fine. Again, yay, you're an author. It isn't always about you. It may not be the kind of book that the editor wants. Here's a rejection letter that I got. Thank you so much for sending me Hank's Prime Time. This is so well written, I was pulled in instantly, and Hank really nails the newsroom setting. I couldn't turn the pages fast enough. Sadly, here's this. Dear Kristen, this plot is a bit too light for me, but I like the writing. I'd be happy to read anything else by this author. Does she write nonfiction? Like, no, I do not write nonfiction. This one. Thank you for sending me Prime Time. I admit I've been on the fence about this project. The author has such an engaging voice, and her firsthand knowledge of the broadcast industry combined with her own impressive position as investigative reporter really make this project stand out. Unfortunately, it goes on. So, but here's what happened about that. That editor, a day later, called my agent and said, I cannot get that book out of my head. Can you see if your author can change that book from a lighthearted chick-litty mystery into a bigger, richer, deeper, fuller women's fiction mystery? She'd have to rewrite the whole book. And my agent called me and said, you want to rewrite the whole book as a women's fiction mystery? She says, I don't think you can do that. And I said, watch me do that. And I rewrote the whole book, and that was Prime Time that won the Agatha for Best First Novel. I rewrote the whole book with a different sensibility. You can ask me back next year and I'll do a class on how I did that. Number 11 is be careful of the internet. Yes, you need it, but when you're on it, it makes you feel like you're doing something because you're typing, right? But you are not doing anything. You're going to need a long bio, you're going to need a short bio, you're going to need a good photo, you're going to need a short synopsis, a long synopsis, an elevator pitch, great patter, ready answers, a great mailing list, and a dazzling website, but you do not need to be on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter all the time. You do need to be on it sometime, and find me on all those, okay, because I'm really on it all the time. But what you decide to do with your time at the computer tells you your priority in life. Is your priority to be on Instagram? If it is, then why are you writing a book? Your priority is your novel, or your memoir, or your nonfiction narrative. Write first, and then when you're done, you can go on the internet and have a lot of fun. 12 is get ready for a crazy ride with unexpected consequences, new pals, and never a dull moment. Be patient, be generous, be helpful and kind. Take care of your writer friends. Be open, be happy for your friends and colleagues. When someone else succeeds, be seriously happy for them, genuinely happy for them. It'll be your turn at some point. Embrace that. But don't forget, number 13, don't forget to celebrate. Don't forget to celebrate. At every turn, raise a glass to yourself or take yourself out to dinner or drink the champagne that your pals sent you. Actually drink the champagne. Don't just put it on your desk as a memory. At every milestone, good and bad, give yourself a pat on the back for hanging in there, like today. And don't raise the bar on yourself, okay? I thought I'd be there when I finished my novel, and then I thought I'd be there when I got an agent, and then I thought I'd be there when I sold the book, and I thought I'd be there when it made bestseller lists, and I raised and raised and raised and raised the bar on myself. And I thought, wait, don't forget to be happy. Don't forget to celebrate. This is the life that we always wanted to lead. I heard Lee Child, I swear, I heard Lee Child complaining to me that he was angry because James Patterson sold more books than he did. Lee Child sells a book a second, right? So I thought, you know what? If Lee Child is going to complain, then who are we? You know, that proves that it's never going to get better. We're competitive, we're ambitious, we want to succeed, we want our books to be loved, but it's not going to happen. And finally, here is the secret to everything. I know you're like, Hank, why didn't you just tell us this first? The secret to everything is my darling husband and I, where he's over there, my darling husband and I don't celebrate the anniversary of the day we met. We celebrate the anniversary of the day before we met. And we call that You Never Know Day. Because you never know what wonderful thing is around the next corner. We just don't know. So if you wish for something or spend your time hoping for something or yearning for something, it may be the wrong thing, because you never know what wonderful thing is around the next corner that you never thought of. So when you're disappointed, when you don't get yes, when you get rejected, when something happens that you wish that it happened, and you think you're doomed and your life is over, how many times does a great thing happen only as a result of the bad thing? So just take it as it comes, as all of us writers do. I had a dream editor that I wanted to take my book Primetime, a dream editor, and the publishing company rejected the book, and I was so unhappy, and 2 months later, the publishing company went out of business. That's why it had been rejected. They didn't tell me that. And if they had taken it, I would be an orphan author with no editor and no publishing company, and my career would have been doomed. So I was hoping for exactly the wrong thing. So don't worry about that. Just do the best you can at every moment. You never know what wonderful thing is around the next corner. Do you know the folk singer Judy Collins? You know Judy Collins, please tell me you do. I told my producer, who's like 35, that I said, Jonathan and I, my husband and I, are going to go hear Judy Collins at Sanders Theater at Harvard. Judy Collins. And she says, great. Nothing. So I said, come on, Mary, you know Judy Collins. She said she's a fabulous folk singer. She sang both sides now. I said I couldn't have gotten through college without listening to her records. And Mary says, records? No. No, she insisted that she knew. But anyway, Judy Collins quickly told this story about how when she was a little girl growing up in Denver, her parents had told her that she had to be a concert pianist, that's what her destiny was. She was going to be a concert pianist. And she practiced and took lessons, and that was what her whole life was. But she said she knew, from the moment she knew anything, that she wanted to be a folk singer. And she said finally she got sick of this piano playing thing. And at age 19, she said, I packed my bags and I moved to New York to be a folk singer. She said, I packed my bags and I moved to New York and I took all my songs with me. And then she said, of course, I hadn't written them yet. I hadn't written them yet. And it just touched me, because I think we all have songs. We all have songs. We just have to make sure that we write them. When I finished writing Primetime, I called Jonathan into the room and I said, sweetheart, watch this. And I typed the end. And then I burst into tears. I burst into tears because ever since I was a little girl, I wanted to be a mystery author, and there I had done it. I had written my first novel. But no matter what happened after that, I had followed my dream. Like Judy Collins, I had followed my dream. I had written my songs. So, of course, I shouldn't have cried when I typed the end, because it wasn't the end at all. It was the beginning of this wonderful new second half of my life and career. So go write your songs, and I can't wait to read them. Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you. Thank you. Oh no. That is. Thank you. Come on, you guys are tired. Thank you. That's so nice of you. Do we have time for questions? Do you want to do it? No? Okay. Okay. We have time for a couple questions, I guess, if anybody doesn't want to just run off and take a nap. Any questions, anybody? No, yes? Okay. Usually people ask me if I know the ending. Are you standing up for a question, or are you just trying to leave? Usually people want to know whether I know the endings of my books before I get there, and the answer is I have no idea what's going to happen. I never use an outline, so I don't know what's going to happen until the next line and the next paragraph and the next chapter. So everything is a surprise. So when people say, wow, the ending of Say No More really surprised me, I'm like, yeah, wasn't that a surprise? So talk about a surprise ending. I surprised myself every time. When I finished writing it, when I finally figured out what the ending of Say No More was going to be, I was by myself in my study. And I stood up and I applauded. I'm like, yeah, and I figured this out. I was so proud of myself. Then I sat down. I'm like, you're by yourself, just sit down, it's fine. So I will close, oh yes?
You speak so authentically and from the heart.
Oh.
So my question is, did you always do that, or did you grow into
Oh.
part of your life give you more confidence?
Oh, that's so nice of you. Can you just come up here and say that into the microphone? No. It's about a question about public speaking and how, whether I always loved public speaking and how I got to enjoy public speaking. I've been a reporter for 40 years. You know, I've wired myself with hidden cameras and confronted corrupt politicians and gone undercover and in disguise. So sort of talking to people has been part of my life for a long time. It's really what's different and what's great as a result of this part of my career is that usually as a reporter, a television reporter, I wouldn't see you. You know, I'm talking to a little red light or to a camera lens. So one of the amazingly wonderful things about talking in groups like this is that I get to see, I get to see you nodding, I get to see you understanding what I'm talking about, and understand that there's this dynamic of, it's not just me, but it's a two-way street of having a conversation, even though I'm the only one talking, a two-way street of conversation with people who I admire and respect and love and hope for the best for. So I've never had that question. Thank you. I hope that's some sort of answer. Anybody else? Yes.
When you were in school, were you a reader? And if you were, what kind of books did you like to read?
When I was in school, was I a reader? And if I was, what kind of books did I like? Oh, yeah. I grew up in really rural Indiana. So rural that you couldn't see another house from our house. And my sister and I used to ride our ponies to the library to get books. And we'd fill up the saddlebags with books and then read up in the hayloft of the barn behind our house. So I read Nancy Drew. You read Nancy Drew, right? The Clue in the Old Clock and The Clue in the Diary, which I thought was Clue in the Dairy for like the whole book. And I thought, like, shouldn't there be cows? I don't know. But my parents lost me for a month or so reading every single word of Sherlock Holmes, every short story and novella. Then I moved on to all the wonderful Golden Age mysteries, Ngaio Marsh and Josephine Tey and Marjorie Allingham, Dorothy Sayers. Loved all those books. In high school, I was the geekiest, nerdiest, my only friends, I can put it this way, my only friends were the characters in books. And that's all I did was read and watch old movies. And I got voted, in junior high, you have middle school. In junior high, I got voted not best dressed, not most likely to succeed, not most popular. I got voted most individual. Oh. They put my picture in the school paper upside down because I was so weird. Truly. So yes, I was a big reader, and I read mysteries like crazy. And then I moved on to thrillers like Alas, Babylon, and Failsafe, and 7 Days in May, and On the Beach. Remember, if you haven't read those, they're like seminal thrillers. I loved those, and that's the kind of book that I really wanted to write. Yes. Oh, this is scary.
TV piece on the investigative reports. I'm kind of curious because, like pitching a book, people must be pitching stories to you to take a look at. I'm curious if producers bring these to you, or you deal directly with the people who are pitching those?
Yeah, I deal directly with the people who are pitching me the story, and there's business cards on the desk here because I know that you all have stories that you'd like me to do. So this is my direct personal email. I get hundreds of story ideas from emails, letters, phone tips on the streets. I get story ideas also from just reading other things and seeing, for instance, I will look at the list of the bills that are proposed in the legislature and say, why would they propose this? Why would they propose this? Every bill that's proposed is a problem that needs to be solved, someone thinks. So often I've gotten good stories from that. I've gotten good stories by being curious and skeptical about why things work and how they work. So I'm very open to stories. It's always funny to figure out how you decide out of all those stories, if I can only do if I can only do 10 stories in a year, how do I pick? And so you sort of have this blink reflex about it. I mean, when a constituent calls you when it's something real. But it doesn't always work. I got a call, several years ago. Remember that explosion at the paint factory in Danvers? Do you remember that? Okay. So a guy calls, very confident sounding, and says, Hank, I know why that paint factory in Danvers exploded. So I think, okay, possible. My meter's like good story, if true. He says, I said, okay, why? And he says, because there was a lab in the basement where they were doing unauthorized experiments, and that's why it blew up. So like I'm thinking, unlikely, but not, not impossible. And I don't really want them to call Channel 5, so I'll listen. So I say, interesting, basement lab, how do you know that? And he said, there's a group that I work with that does inspections of labs like that, and I can send you the records of our inspection of the lab of that paint factory. So I say, okay, that's interesting. What is the name of the organization that inspects these labs? And he says, the Ashtar Intergalactic Command. So I didn't do that. I told them to call. Wouldn't it be funnier? Wouldn't it be funny? But that would have been the end of my job, actually. That's a book. That is a book. Oh, Michelle with her good ideas. I know we have to wrap up now, so I will wind up by saying, first, find me on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and find each other, and I will post the pictures. Second, if there's ever anything that you need or want to talk about or want to run by me or you want to know, we're bonded by this organization and by this weekend, so my business cards are on the table, my sign-up sheet for my mailing list is there. Please look for Trust Me, please look for Trust Me. The Psychological Thrill, you have buttons on your table that say Trust Me. I'm an author, I'm a reader, I'm a mystery fan, I have more, please wear those. I'll take your picture in them and put them on Facebook. And I will finally wind up by saying what my agent always asks me to say, which is, a signed book makes a great gift. Thank you so much for coming.